Welcome to the Life Matters podcast with enlightening conversations on success and living well. My guests are all motivated by the desire to make a difference, and they share their wisdom, personal journeys, and a host of practical guidance that we can apply in our lives. Subscribe on your favourite platform and never miss an episode. Hello, Brian. I'm really delighted that you're joining me today. Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure to be with you.
I know that you've been inspiring and helping others through your speaking and your goal mapping for over 30 years now. But for those who aren't familiar, perhaps you can share with me how you came to develop it in the first instance.
I'm known as the creator of goal mapping, and it's reached millions of people around the world. But actually, I didn't sit down and design it one day. It came as a flash of insight. I was driving my car at midnight through the centre of London, and for about a year I'd been asking a question, which was, what is the very best way of setting goals? There are lots of different ways of setting goals, and some work and some really don't. And I set myself to finding out the best way, and I only read books on goal setting for about a year. At the time, I was working with a training company in London who had the licenses to promote people like Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey, Brian Tracy. And I'd often get to spend time with these people. I'd be with them at dinner, pick them up from the airport, and I'd question them, what do you think is the best way to set goals? And everybody had a different idea. And then driving my car late 1994, I had a flash of insight and I saw a goal map in words and pictures. I saw the whole thing complete in my mind in one go. And then gradually over a period of months, often while trying to get to sleep at night, I sort of reverse engineered what I'd seen. And I realized there were a number of parts to a goal map. And gradually I put it together, and about a year later, come an opportunity to start teaching it. And actually teaching it for a little more than 30 years now has helped me to understand it more and more and more.
Every day's a school day, huh?
Well, yeah, in some ways. And I quite like still being a student. I'm still learning new things about it.
Perhaps you take me back to what even got you into the field of personal development. You know, some of those names that you mentioned at the beginning. What's your backstory to coming to even being interested in the arena?
I got into personal development almost by mistake when I look back on it. My father's family business went broke. I'd had an unusual childhood. I'd grown up in a travelling Funfair family. On both sides of my family, I'm related to the two oldest circus families in England. And I grew up on the Funfairs, and also every year my father would bring the Funfair to the Isle of Wight, and he'd open up at the seaside for the tourist industry. And so I had several different homes each year on the Funfairs, on the Isle of Wight, and at our winter base by Heathrow Airport. Didn't go to school very much, which was typical for travelling children. Never sat any exams because we were always moving. I'd had several different schools each year. And then just before I was 13, I dropped out of school altogether. And it sounds really odd to a lot of people, but back when I was 13 on the Funfairs, that was normal. Most of the travelling children would leave school around about 13 because qualifications weren't considered important, and instead learning about the business and becoming a young entrepreneur and helping to run the family business, that was what was considered to be the most important thing. And there are no career opportunities on the Funfairs. It's a self-employed existence. And so at 13, I dropped out of education. I started working full-time with my father. I helped him run the family business, helped him expand it. At 18, I become the youngest person in the UK to be granted a liquor and entertainments license. I opened a disco. I was the youngest disco owner in the country. I become very successful at that. I run the disco for 13 years, made a lot of money, had loads of fun with it. We had all sorts of celebrities and people coming. But at the end of those 13 years, the whole family business come to an end. And it wasn't really because we did anything wrong or made any big mistakes. It was because tourism changed. In the late 1980s, early 90s, English people started taking their main holiday abroad in the Mediterranean. Spain, Italy, Greece, all of my customers, the disco customers, went to Ibiza. And so there just wasn't enough people coming to the Isle of Wight. There wasn't enough business to be had. And lots of old established family businesses went out of business, hotels and amusement parks. And my family was one of those that wound up. And at age 29, I found myself in £1 million of debt from the family business. My home was repossessed. My possessions were gone. My income was gone. And because I left school early, I had no qualifications and I'd never learned to read and write properly. Partly because of my lifestyle, but mostly because I had dyslexia. I really didn't know what to do. Life looked really dark. My parents were 65 at the time, and their home was going to be repossessed because they had it as security against the debt. My brother's home was repossessed, so it wiped out the whole family. And I wasn't sure how to cope with the situation. I hid in my old bedroom in my father's house for a while, waiting for the repossession people to come. But then one day, a knock on the door, and I thought repossession people for sure, but it wasn't. It was some friends, and they come and they offered me an opportunity to join direct sales. And I didn't know what it was. Commission only, they said. I didn't understand what commission only was, but I decided I would join them, and I learned commission only means if you don't do any business, you don't earn any money. And I really wasn't any good at it at first. I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder because everything had gone wrong in my life. My marriage had broke down under the pressure. I was alone and I was sad. And people like to do business with happy and positive people. They like to buy things from happy and positive people. I was the opposite. So it wasn't going very well. But it turned into the greatest blessing in my life because in joining direct sales, I met this amazing guy who became my life coach. And he started teaching me about the power and the science of positive thinking and goal setting. And he showed me how to use the science of positive thinking and goal setting to boost my performance at work. But also, he showed me how I could use it to overcome my learning challenges, teach myself to read well. And it took me about 1 year to teach myself to read well. And in that year, I took my performance at work from the lowest in the team to the highest. And lots of people in the team wanted to know how I'd done that. And so I started to make simple presentations. I become fascinated in personal development. I was reading a book a week. I learned to speed read. And everything I read in all the different books I was covering, I started practicing those techniques and principles in my life. And life improved. And I started teaching what I was learning to others. And then I got a good break, which is that somebody had recommended me to this training company in London. And I become an employed trainer for them on a pretty good salary at the time, but also in an industry that I was absolutely loving. And it gave me access to all of these top speakers around the world to learn from and gradually also to become certified in many of their techniques. But then when I saw the flash of goal mapping, I knew this is the thing that I want to teach. And it felt like a gift from the universe. It came complete. And so I left the training company about a year later in 1995 because they didn't want to teach the system themselves. I set up my own business at that point and it went from strength to strength, basically.
Wow, remarkable story, turning your life around in that way. And you talk about the goal mapping coming to you whilst you were driving. Why is it so powerful? And I've heard you talk about it. I think I've heard you mention it being practical and yet magical. So why does it work so well in your view?
The main principle of why it works is that it uses a unique combination of words and imagery. And the words are always written in the form of an affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
and the imagery stimulates the right side of the brain and creates visualization. And together, the words as affirmation and the pictures forming visualization help to activate the whole brain. And it's this process of whole brain activation that gets the goal deeply embedded so that the person is clear on what they want to achieve, but also their subconscious mind is programmed with the goal. And the subconscious mind works like your own personal autopilot and helps you to move towards the goal. There are 7 aspects within a goal map. There is what you want, but also your priority number 1 goal. There's why you want it, when, a timeline, how you're going to do it, and also whose help you'd like. So all the key aspects of conscious achievement are on one page. And you can draw a goal map by hand using paper and templates, or you can create it digital online. It's so simple that we've had more than 1 million children from school, mostly state education, but some private schools in many countries around the world have done goal maps. And yet it's powerful enough that we've got big corporate clients like Microsoft, Siemens, Disney, Coca-Cola. So it works at a high level for business, and yet it's a very simple system that children can use as well. Even young children can create a goal map. And it's a life skill. So once you've learnt it, you have it. When I first created it, I had a lot of contacts around the world, different speakers, and I was an early adopter of the internet, had my first website in 1995, and I started looking around the world for anything similar. Back in 1995, there were no dream boards or vision boards. If people were setting goals, they would write them down line after line after line, like a punishment almost. You had to write out your goal 100 times a day, every day. And it never seemed to work for most people. And with a goal map, it's this combination of words and pictures. And I spoke to loads of people about it, and they all said, you've got something absolutely new here. Nobody else is doing this. But then 5 years later, after I started teaching it, I was invited to a Hindu ceremony at a temple in London. And I sat there absolutely amazed and watched the Brahmin priests chant a mantra, words in affirmation, while creating a yantra, a picture, a power pattern. And I realized this is exactly the same principle, words and pictures. Now, the goal they're setting is simple. I am love, I am peace, I am happy. It's still a goal. And as I started to research, I saw, well, Buddhists do the same thing. They chant a mantra, and at the same time as they chant the words, they create an image. Sometimes on paper, but often using colored rice or colored sand, a mandala. In Hinduism, they call it yantra is the words, and a mantra the words, and yantra the picture. In Buddhism, it's mantra and mandala, but it's exactly the same principle, and it's thought to be 10,000 years old. And the reason why they've kept doing it for 10,000 years is because it works. And it's that same reason that makes a goal map work. And there are some absolutely amazing success stories from people that have been on goal mapping workshops. probably didn't believe too much at the time when they were on the workshop and creating their map. But then they contacted me years later to say, wow, I'm astounded. I've achieved everything on the map. So after all these years and millions of people going through it and a huge folder of nice letters from people telling me what they've achieved, I've come to absolutely believe in the system.
That's incredible. And the number of people that you've reached is just mind-blowing. Are there any particular instances that stand out for you that you could talk about in terms of what people have achieved in their lives? And it doesn't necessarily have to be materially.
No, I had a nice message from a guy a little while ago who was on one of my corporate workshops. And sometimes they're the nicest messages, because the thing with a corporate workshop is often people don't want to be there. It's not like a public workshop where someone gives up their time and their money because they know they want to go to the workshop. Quite often in a corporate workshop, people have been told to be there by their manager, and so they're a little bit half-hearted, but gradually they get into it. And this guy was on one of my corporate workshops, and he did his goal map. He said, I didn't think much of it at the time, but I did my map. But it worked for him, and his goal was to buy his mother a home for her retirement, because she didn't have a lot of money, didn't have her own home, and he used goal mapping to advance his career, and his motivation was to buy her a home, and he achieved it. And then he sent the picture of him, with the sold sign of the home that he bought her and the keys. Wow. It was a similar experience for me. I talked to you just now about, I saw goal mapping in '95 and I started teaching it, and it took off. Took me 10 years to pay back the debt so that my mum and dad could keep their home. My mum and dad keeping their home and not being homeless at 65 was the motivation that kept me going through the early days, because I didn't have a great deal of belief in the early days. I could see it was working. I could see people liked it, but it was early days, and I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to make it the success that it's become. And helping to pay back that debt to make sure my mum and dad was okay was the prime motivation on it. I had another nice letter from someone a little while ago. They were on, again, it was a corporate workshop. They set a goal to start their own business and emigrate to America. And he wrote me and he said, I'm moving house. I'm moving to a bigger house in America. And I was clearing out a drawer, and at the back of the drawer, I found my old goal map, and I looked at it and I realized I've achieved everything on it. And it's 10 years later, and I just thought I'd write you and let you know. And he tracked me down through social media. Some of the children's stories are really heartwarming. They're doing goal map at school, and again, some of them don't really believe that much, but they do it because they're expected to. But many of them have gone on to achieve their dreams. We've got a lot of coaches and trainers teaching it around the world, more than 1,600 now. And one of them in Africa has presented to more than 35 school children on his own since becoming certified. And some of the young children in poor villages that he's gone and presented to are now in universities studying to be...
Okay.
Sorry about that. Sometimes the emotion gets me a little. Yeah, so he's got children studying to become doctors and lawyers, and I've never met him, the guy, because we do, when it's a distance like that, we do a lot of the training online. Otherwise, he could never have afforded to come to England, do the training, and I would have needed to just done it at a nothing cost. But online, we can train people, we can be giving. So I've never actually met him.
Wow.
But he had a son about a year ago, named him Brian.
Oh, did he?
Uh,
You're going to make me emotional now.
Not very professional of me. Sometimes I'm making a speech in front of a couple of thousand people and the emotion gets to me.
I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, I think perhaps what this world needs is more emotions being shown and expressed.
Mm.
And I have no problem with that at all. So feel free.
Thank you.
How how amazing. And I'm not surprised you get overwhelmed when you think of these lives that you've touched and people you haven't even met. How do you keep yourself energized and still doing this? Because 30 years is a long time. Um, and to retain that freshness in terms of delivering the trainings or giving giving presentations to large audiences, how do you manage to do that?
It's actually people like you that help. Well, it's people like you that ask me to share what I'm doing and gives me the platform, the opportunity to reach out. That really helps me. And it helps me realize that it's making a difference because I've always believed it was my purpose. From very early times, I had a strange spiritual experience right at the beginning before I had goal mapping, as I made the decision to become a trainer and a coach and a teacher. I hadn't grown up with any spiritual beliefs whatsoever, and nor my family, and so to have an experience that completely changed my attitude was a very strong thing for me. I was never quite the same afterwards. I didn't go and talk about it a great deal. It wasn't something I wanted to share openly, but inwardly I came to believe I meant to do this. And when goal mapping came as a single flash, I felt that it was a gift from the universe and that I was meant to share it with people and in a way that made it accessible. And for me, making something accessible has two aspects to it. One is it needs to be simple so that you don't have to have a degree in psychology to understand it. And the other thing is it needs to be affordable. And so much of personal development is quite elitist, high prices. And so always I've sought to make what I create affordable. We always have a free version for people to go and access for absolutely no money. We keep our prices as low as we can, and so that the material's there to help people. Because quite often the people that really need the help don't have the money to be able to invest in the high prices that a lot of the speakers and coaches charge. And so for me, it really is a purpose, and that means with a purpose, there's no real end date. A goal has a target date that you aim for, and a purpose doesn't. It's like a path that you're traveling, and this is my path, and it will come to an end one day, of course, but I will keep doing it for as long as I can. I'm quite inspired by other speakers that I see that are in their 80s and they're still up making presentations. So I hope that will also be the case for me.
And is it fair to say then that some of your motivation in helping others deliver goal mapping training, and I know you've got a certification course, is that partly your legacy? Do you feel then that that others are going to carry on your work after your time?
Yes, absolutely. I started the certification program in 1999, And we had just a group of 10 people that wanted to teach it. Round my own home, actually, we run it. And gradually now it's grown. And there were two important aspects for me with the certification program. One was that I knew if I was going to reach a lot of people, which I felt was my purpose, then I would need a lot of people that could teach goal mapping. And the other reason was I thought, well, if something happens to me, then there are people that know how to teach it and can continue. In recent times, we've been using AI to build a knowledge repository. So everything I've learned over the last 30 plus years, we're feeding into this knowledge repository, and we're training AI to be an assistant coach to help the other coaches so that the teaching's preserved and people can access it. Because goal mapping is only one of 4 different mapping systems that I've created. The other systems are called life mapping, which is about developing your quality of character, action mapping, which is about changing habit patterns, and self mapping, which is about becoming your true authentic self. So the 4 mapping systems apply to different aspects of success. And there is a philosophy that sits behind them, 7 universal principles that come together to form a knowledge base for living life in a good way and living in harmony with the fundamental principles of creation. So all of that recently we've been building into this AI repository and training up an AI coach to assist the other trainers. And I plan to be here for a long time, but the world is moving more and more towards AI. And so we've been looking for how we can use it to support the work we're doing. So I didn't sit down and create any of them. They came either as a flash of insight, like goal mapping, or they came during a meditation. The follow-on program from goal mapping, life mapping, came in a meditation in 1996. The next one, action mapping, came in 1997. And then the deepest of the techniques, self-mapping, came in 1999. And gradually over the years, I've written books on those systems. In addition, there's also a children's version called The 7 Magic Keys for Success. And my children's book, which is called Sound the Magic Genie, uses a central analogy that your subconscious mind is like a magical genie. It can do amazing things. It can help your wishes come true. But your subconscious can't just wish for you. You must set the goal to command your subconscious. So goal mapping, really the science behind it, is how you set the goal in the most powerful way in order to command your subconscious. And we've put all of that understanding into an analogy and a story to make it accessible for children. And that's been the basis of the school program for the younger children, for primary school children. And we use a simplified version of the adult program for the secondary school children.
Wow. And at the other end of the spectrum, I know that there are some people trained, qualified in your methodology that go into care homes and work with the elderly.
Yes.
What's so empowering for that age group through doing this kind of activity, do you think?
I've always believed that sort of water finds its own level, or horses for courses is another saying that springs to mind. And we have a lot of coaches and trainers who took the certification years ago, and they're now in their retirement years, and they're looking to help people similar to them. And there's a really nice professor of neurology who likes goal mapping, and he's been very helpful to us in the science of goal mapping and how goal mapping helps establish the brain cell connections. And his passion is to get retired people to continue setting goals to prevent the early onset of dementia. Because the research is quite clear that if you keep your brain active, like keeping a muscle active, then you prevent that early decay. Now, the goals they set may not be materialistic goals about work and money and those things, but it's goals such as learning another language, learning to play a musical instrument, or goals about keeping active within their movement or trying some new things. And so I find it very inspiring that this simple system can help so many different people in different ways, different walks of life, different ages. One of our trainers in Italy has suffered a stroke, and he had a stroke on the right side of his brain, and so he lost spatial awareness because that's a right brain function, and he lost all the movement down the left side of his body. And he started goal mapping to rewire his brain and compensate for the damage. And he's got the use of his movement back. He was a very good skier before the stroke, and he can't quite ski, but in terms of walking and talking, and he's brilliant. He led a group up into the mountains because he's also the head of the Nordic Walking Association for Italy. And last year he led a group up into the mountains to a cabin, and they all sat down, they all did their goal maps there. They call it brain walking, and he's written a book on it now and speaks at conferences. Wow. So it's a very diverse system. It's used in leadership and management, it's used in education, but equally it's used in therapy and well-being. We have a lot of diet organizations that have adopted it, because when you create a goal map, it creates an inner picture in your mind that your subconscious reads. And one of the challenges for a lot of people when they try and diet is they're trying to change their outside behavior, but they haven't changed their internal picture, which works like the blueprint. And if you've got an inner picture of you being overweight, that will influence your outside eating behaviors. And so unless people change that inner picture, they end up fighting against their own behavior. And even if they force through willpower a change and they lose some kilos, they normally put it all back on again. They yo-yo in their weight. And the results of people combining a goal map with some diet or exercise plan they're going to follow have been amazing. Likewise for people doing detoxes and cleanses. But there are more and more addiction therapists that have adopted goal mapping. Some of the results with alcohol addiction have been fantastic, but also narcotics, tobacco, because all of it, again, is controlled by an inner picture in your mind. In psychology, it's known as a self-image, an inner image of yourself. It's like an inner selfie. We form them through our thoughts and our experience, and they create a blueprint, and our subconscious reads it every moment of every day to keep us the same. When you wake up in the morning, you don't have to rethink who am I and how do I do everything. You've got a series of inner pictures that tell you who you are and regulate your behavior and your habit patterns. That's how we're able to do things on autopilot, like driving your car or riding a bicycle. You have to concentrate when you're first learning it. But once you've learned it, you form this inner picture, your subconscious reads the inner picture, and you're able to do it without constant conscious thought. And so a goal map is a way of getting a new picture inserted into your self-image and make it dominant, so your subconscious follows the new picture, and that way you're able to influence new behaviors, new habits, new attitudes.
Wow. People are just so much more powerful than they realize, aren't they?
Absolutely. Most people are capable of so much more than they know. But it's only when we go out and we try that we find out. My own family, when I set the goal that I was going to be a trainer and write books, and my mum said, "Get real, my son. You can't even read and write properly. You've got no qualifications. You're never going to do those things. It's not for people like us." And it would be easy to say she was being negative, but she wasn't. She was deeply worried that I'd lost my mind and I'd joined some crazy positive thinking cult. And I was going to set these goals and become really disappointed. And it was better to play safe, and stay within what I knew. But you don't know what you can do until you try. I wasn't sure whether I could do it or not, but my books are in 17 languages. I've spoken in more than 30 countries. We've got trainers now all around the world. So, and I'm not done.
No.
There's
Wow.
more I want to do.
I want to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. Your Warrior Within program, I did that.
Yes, I know.
Very privileged to have taken part in that and really benefited from it. It had a huge impact on me. Where did the Warrior Within come from in all of this? I'm curious about that. And then I
Lockdown.
want to ask you about one of the things that I found really interesting during that program was how much you referenced people from thousands of years ago, your passion for history and quotes about life, and because that really impacted me as well. And I haven't come across anybody in the personal development field who does that to your extent or makes it so real. So if that isn't too long a question, perhaps we could get into
It was a pleasure to have you on Warrior Bin.
it. Was
It's quite
brilliant.
an intimate program, as you know, and we encourage people to be really open and share. And of course, we keep private what people share. The program came about because of lockdown. I gave up my home during lockdown. I moved out and I moved in with my mum. My dad died 20 years ago, but my mum was living on her own and she was vulnerable. And so I decided I would move in with her for whatever amount of time we were going to be locked down and do all the shopping and try and shield her from it. And I saw so many people going through a difficult time, including many of my own trainers. A lot of those were older and vulnerable because they'd become certified in goal mapping years ago. Some of them take the goal mapping after they retire even. And I thought, what can I do for these people? And I decided I would put on a program where I brought in all 4 of my mapping systems over 7 weeks, that I would do it online, and that I'd include all of the deeper wisdom, much of it very ancient wisdom, that I'd accumulated over the years and put it all into one program, but mix that ancient wisdom with also modern neuroscience and the latest findings to show that it isn't just somebody's idea from thousands of years ago. There's actually scientific proof here for what's being said. When I went to school, which wasn't very often, the only subject I really enjoyed was history. And because I couldn't read and write, I developed quite a good memory. I can recall conversations from years ago, word for word, verbatim. If you can't make notes, you need to develop your ability to remember things. And things that I liked, quotes that I liked, pieces of wisdom would stick in my mind and I'd be able to bring them forth. And I used to do it randomly very often in my workshops. But with Warrior Within, I decided to really cement them down. And what I love about ancient wisdom is that often it's an essence. There's nothing unnecessary being said. There's not a lot of padding around it. It's short and precise, and it's clear. And the thing about ancient wisdom is that it has stood the test of time. There are pieces of ancient wisdom that I recite and use in my programs that were written down over 2,000 years ago. They were true 2,000 years ago. They are still true now. And they will be true in another 2,000 years' time. I also like that when you study ancient wisdom, you'll find that there are different people from different cultures, separated by thousands of miles, like a culture in ancient Greece and a culture in ancient India, that are saying exactly the same things, and yet there was no communication between them. They've come to their conclusion through deep thinking over long periods, and it tends to be right. And I trust the ancient wisdom more than often modern opinion, because it's been proven right over such a long period. One of the pieces of wisdom, for instance, that's always stuck in my mind is by Socrates. And it's recorded in the temple at Delphi, one of the oldest pilgrimage worship sites in the world, 5,000 years old. And on the temple, at the entrance to the temple, this high place of wisdom, are recorded the words "gnothaisiatum." It means know yourself, know thyself. And you'll find this again and again in different cultures, know yourself. Well, a few years ago, Harvard Business School ran a lengthy research program where they were looking for the key indicators of employees that should be trained for management and future leadership. And there were many key indicators, but the prime one was self-awareness. Because somebody who's taught management skills but doesn't have self-awareness tends to use those skills in inappropriate ways. And so knowing yourself, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, knowing your own beliefs, being aware of your own habit patterns, this is fundamental to living life in a good way and creating success. And so I really value simple, ancient wisdom. And then I look to put the modern substance and scientific understanding to back up the wisdom, to show this isn't just somebody's idea. This is now proven to be the right way.
Thank you for explaining that, and it makes so much sense and it's very powerful. Self-awareness, yes.
Yeah, the more you know yourself, if you see something in yourself that you don't like or you think isn't your best, you can change it. And gradually it helps you to become your true, authentic self, which I believe is the real master goal of life, to become your true self. Many people go through the whole life blind to certain behaviors they have, certain failings they have. And if we're unaware of something in ourselves, it just continues as an unconscious habit pattern. And so you'll find it again and again, not just in ancient times, but in great psychologists like Carl Jung, for instance. Awareness was one of his key principles, because without it, you're not effective.
Yeah. Do you still do one-on-one coaching with people? Do you still do some of that, or much less now?
I do less now. I don't always consider it the best use of my time. Occasionally someone comes along and they really want my help, and I feel it's good to help them if I can. The people I tend to coach, and I give quite a lot of my time to, are my own coaches and trainers, because I obviously want to help them be their best. Some of my coaches and trainers, even though they were certified years ago, they will still come to me because something's changed in their life and they want help, and I will just give my time to help them. The guy that helped me years and years ago, my first coach when I got involved in direct sales, he never asked me for any money. He took a liking to me. I confessed to him about my sorry situation. You know, I'm £1 million in debt, and I'm homeless, and I can't read and write. And he helped me. And he died quite young. I had him as my coach for about 5 years, and then he suddenly died. It was a great loss. But I decided at that time that I should make my own life about doing what I could to help others. And so every so often a cause comes along that I think I can help. Done quite a lot of work here for charities and people on the island to trying to help them, and have their own trainers again to help others. The teach to teach approach is something that I think is very good, because you can then get a spread of helping more and more people. And particularly with young people, I like to try and train up young people to be coaches, peer-to-peer coaching. My own children started learning goal mapping when they were just 5 years old. I didn't push it on them. They just saw me doing my maps, and I would often drag them along to the weekend workshops, because didn't always have childcare, and so they would come and give them a bag of Lego to play underneath the book table. But gradually they were soaking up all of the things that were said in the workshop, and they could repeat it back to me, and it's become just part of their inner workings now.
Wow. I think you're an incredible person, Brian. I have so much admiration for you. If people want to find out more and get involved with either the books or the online workshops and so on, what's the best way for them to do that?
Goalmapping.com.
Oh, nice and simple.
Our online program is available to people there, and they can join that for free, or they can download the paper templates. There's a family area again. There's free templates and information for parents to use to teach it to their own children, because we don't have it established in schools as standard. There are a lot of schools that teach it, but more and more parents are liking to teach it themselves to their children. So everything that people need is there. We run a free masterclass every month, where people can just jump on the masterclass, and I explain how to do a goal map for different areas of life. We change it every month. I think the next one we have coming up is about a goal map for finding and following your purpose. I can't remember what day it's coming, but maybe it's around the 13th, somewhere there of July. But it's all there on the website. People can just click and register for anything they want.
That's amazing. Great resources, great work that you're doing. Thank you so much for your time today talking to me.